When I first moved to Texas, I wasn't looking for anything special. Just a place I could afford, someplace quiet, someplace where the world couldn't reach me anymore. I had left California with the kind of exhaustion that sits deep in your bones. My marriage had failed, my job had drained the last of what I had, and my dad's passing had hollowed out every room inside me. I needed empty space. I needed silence. I needed to rebuild myself. So when my realtor, a 40-something guy named Mitchell with a too bright smile, showed me a cheap two-story farmhouse sitting alone at the edge of a field, I felt something in my chest loosen for the first time in a long while. The air smelled like cedar and sunlight. The wind moved slow. The world felt paused. It's an old place, and Mitchell said, hands on his hips, trying to sound casual, good bones, needs a little love, but it's solid. He kept talking while I walked from room to room, feeling a strange mix of nostalgia and déjà vu. I had never been to Texas before, never seen this house, but something about it felt familiar, like I had dreamed about it once, long ago, and forgotten. Then I noticed the door. It was at the end of the upstairs hallway, painted the same off-white as the rest of the trim, but with a slightly different texture. Like the paint was newer, thicker, hiding something. The knob was cold brass, old-fashioned. There was no keyhole, just a knob and a door that didn't belong. "What's that one?" I asked without thinking. Mitchell tensed just enough for me to notice. "Oh, that one stays closed." I turned back to him. "Why, it's storage," he said too quickly. "The previous owners sealed it up for a reason. Rats, structural issues, nothing you need." He was lying, not boldly. More like someone repeating a lie they were told and didn't want to test. "You're selling me the house," I said. "Shouldn't I know what's behind every door?" A bead of sweat rolled behind his ear. "Just don't open it, all right. It's safer that way." He moved the conversation along so fast I barely had time to press. And maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the way the sun hit the windows, but eventually I let it go. 2 weeks later, I signed the papers, and 3 days after that, I opened the door. It wasn't curiosity. Not at first. I had too much unpacking to do, too much cleaning, too many repairs to distract myself with. But every night, after I turned off the hallway light, I'd look down the hall and see that door, always closed. Always waiting, always too silent. On my 4th night in the house, around 1:30 a.m., I woke to a soft sound at the end of the hallway. A shuffle, a thud, like something tapping lightly against wood. I grabbed my phone, its screen lighting my hand pale, blue, and stepped into the hallway. The house air felt cold. The door was vibrating, not violently, just a faint, slow tremor, like something on the other side was dragging its fingers across it. I swallowed and forced myself toward it. "Hello," I whispered, then immediately felt stupid. The trembling stopped. Silence. Then, very softly, something tapped back. 3 slow knocks, not demanding, not trapped, just acknowledging me. I stared at the door, waiting for any kind of logic to save me from what I just heard. Rats don't knock in patterns. Pipes don't knock back. My heartbeat felt like it was pressing against my throat. I backed away slowly until I reached my bedroom again and shut the door. I barely slept. By morning, sunlight had washed away most of the fear, and logic kicked back in. Maybe the wood contracted. Maybe an animal brushed against the wall. Maybe I was exhausted and imagined the rhythm. I went downstairs, made coffee, stood at the kitchen window watching the tall grass sway. I told myself it was nothing, but the moment night fell, nothing felt like the truth. On the 7th night in the house, I decided to open the door, not out of stupidity, but because something about the door felt wrong in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't just the tapping, it was the feeling I got standing near it, a pressure at the base of my skull, like someone was staring at me through the wood. That night, the air felt heavy, the house felt smaller. And I couldn't stop thinking about how the realtor had looked when I asked him what was inside. Terrified, sad, guilty, a mix I recognized too well in myself. I walked to the end of the hall, my fingers shaking as I wrapped them around the brass knob. It was cold, too cold, frost in the middle of summer cold. For a moment I almost turned around, almost talked myself out of it. Then the door tapped again, just once, soft, like it was telling me it was okay, or like it was answering a question I hadn't asked. I twisted the knob, it clicked. The door swung open with a slow, dragging creak that echoed through the entire house. I held my phone up, its flashlight slicing through the darkness inside. The room was small, barely big enough for a twin bed. Dust drifted in the air, the walls were cracked, the wooden floor was scratched like furniture, or something heavy had been dragged out years ago, but the strangest part wasn't the empty space. It was the chair. In the very center of the room was an old wooden rocking chair. It faced the door directly, and sitting on its seat was a radio, a small, old, boxy radio, the kind from the 1940s. The dial was cracked. The speaker cloth was frayed, but the power cord was cut clean off. I stepped inside, the floor creaking under my weight. When I reached the chair, I lifted the radio. It was warm. I dropped it with a gasp. Radios with no power cord aren't warm. They don't vibrate. They definitely don't hum like something alive inside them, but this one did. A soft hum like air moving through old wires. Then the radio clicked on. A whisper crawled out of its dead speaker, not static, not music, a voice, a man's voice, low, familiar. Don't stay in here. I froze, the radio hissed, crackled, then cut out again. The room returned to silence. I stumbled back into the hallway, slamming the door shut behind me. My breath came in sharp, panicked bursts, my fingers trembling so violently I dropped my phone. In the faint reflection of the dark screen, I saw something behind me. A figure standing in the opened room, but when I spun around, nothing. Just the door tightly closed. For the rest of the night, I sat in my living room with every light on, waiting for dawn. When morning finally arrived, I called Mitchell. He didn't answer. I called again and again, no reply. When I drove to his real estate office, the secretary blinked at me in confusion. "Mitchell hasn't worked here for 8 months," she said. My stomach dropped. "What? He just sold me a house 2 weeks ago." She shook her head. "Honey, Mitchell died last year, heart attack." I felt the blood drain from my face as she kept talking, not realizing I wasn't breathing anymore. "But his brother still uses his old email sometimes. You probably spoke to him." I opened my mouth, but the words tangled. "His brother?" She nodded. "Yeah, Nathan. He's the one handling Mitchell's old listings. Looks a lot like him, actually." She laughed lightly. "I didn't, because the man who sold me the house wasn't named Nathan. He had introduced himself as Mitchell, and the voice from the radio last night, the one that told me not to stay inside the room, it sounded exactly like his." I drove home shaking, my mind racing. Every thought felt like it belonged to someone else. Every shadow felt alive. And when I stood at the base of the stairs staring up at that hallway, I knew with absolute certainty that whatever was behind that door wasn't done with me. That night, at exactly 1:11 a.m., the radio turned itself on again. Even though the door was shut, even though the power cord was still missing, even though I wasn't inside the room, the voice whispered through the floorboards, sliding under my bedroom door like cold smoke. "Why did you open the door?" My phone vibrated on the nightstand. Unknown caller. I answered with shaking hands. A faint whisper said, "You shouldn't be alone in the house. It wakes up when you're alone." I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" A long pause. Then, "You've already met me." The line went dead. The radio stopped. The house held its breath. Then 3 soft knocks. Not at my bedroom door. At the forbidden door down the hallway. And they weren't coming from inside the room this time. They were coming from the hallway side. Something was now standing outside that door, waiting, breathing, and the floorboards creaked slowly as whatever it was began walking toward my room. The floorboards creaked slowly as whatever stood in the hallway began walking toward my bedroom. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the house itself was straining under its weight. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't even think straight. All I could do was stare at the crack beneath my bedroom door, watching as a faint shadow slipped across the line of light like ink spreading through water. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I didn't want to answer, but something inside me, some instinct older than logic, told me I needed to, so I picked up. Before I could say a word, the voice whispered, "Don't open the door." It was the same voice from the radio. Calm, low, familiar, my throat tightened. Why is it coming toward me? What does it want? Silence shuddered through the line. Then the voice said, almost too softly, "It wants you to open the other door again." My heart slammed against my ribs. Why? Because it can't open it itself. The shadow stopped directly outside my bedroom door. Slowly, very slowly, the doorknob began to turn. I backed into the corner of the room, my fingers gripping the lamp beside my bed. The knob kept twisting even though the lock held. Click, click, click. Something on the other side was testing the pressure of the lock, testing the strength of the wood, testing me. The voice whispered again through my phone, "It doesn't want the room. It wants what the room connects to." My pulse hammered in my ears. What does it connect to? You already know. My chest tightened as memory hit me like ice water. The chair, the warmth, the radio, the voice that shouldn't exist. The man who sold me the house, the dead man. The room wasn't sealed to keep something in. It was sealed to keep something out here from getting in. The knob stopped shaking, the shadow shifted, then something scraped the door, not nails, not fingers. Something sharper, something metallic, dragging like a blade, tracing the outline of the wood. My phone buzzed again, another message, a single sentence, "Don't make a sound." My breath froze, the scraping stopped. Silence. I listened for breathing, wanted to hear human breath, but there was nothing, no inhale, no exhale, just stillness. Then a whisper pressed against the other side of the door, "I know you're awake." Not the radio voice, not the realtor voice, something older, something hollow, something that spoke like it had no lips, only teeth. I clenched the lamp in my hand. The whisper continued, "You opened my door, so let me open yours." My stomach knotted. The lock clicked, not from pressure, not from force, but like someone on my side had turned it. I spun around, the lock had flipped by itself. I stumbled backward as the door slowly cracked open, and a sliver of the hallway bled into the room. The thing outside leaned its head in, not a full face, just darkness, a shape, a silhouette with no features except two faint, dull white impressions where eyes should be, like the suggestion of eyes, not eyes themselves. It didn't move, didn't breathe, it just watched me. Then slowly it stepped inside. I choked on air and swung the lamp at its head with everything I had. The lamp passed straight through its body, no sound. No impact, nothing. The thing flickered, then split like a shadow catching two different lights. My knees buckled. It wasn't physical, it wasn't alive, and yet it was here. The thing tilted its head as if studying me. "You opened the wrong door first," it whispered. The room temperature dropped sharply. My breath fogged in front of me. The floor groaned under a weight that didn't match the creature's movement. My vision dimmed like someone was lowering a curtain over my eyes. The thing stepped closer. "You let me see you." I scrambled backward until my spine hit the wall. "Please, please stop." "Can't." I squeezed my eyes shut, and then from the hallway the radio turned on. A loud burst of static exploded through the house, sharp and violent like electricity cracking open the air. The creature jerked its head toward the sound, its body glitching, warping, like a bad reflection on water. The radio voice bellowed, stronger than before, "Get out of the room." I lunged toward the door, stumbling into the hallway, tearing my foot on the splintered floor. The creature screeched behind me, a sound made of metal and wind and something like human pain. I ran. The hallway blurred, the walls shook. The house groaned like it was waking up around me. Wood snapping, lights flickering, ceiling cracking above my head. I reached the forbidden door. The radio voice growled through the static. Close IT now. I slammed the door shut with my entire weight and turned the lock. The moment the lock clicked, the house fell eerily still. No footsteps, no shadows, no whispering, just breathing, my shaking. My collapsing. I backed away from the sealed door, clutching my bleeding hand. Then the radio buzzed. The voice returned, soft again. You need to listen carefully now. I swallowed. Who are you? A long, exhausted sigh. I lived in that house before you. My heart twisted. The voice continued. That room isn't a room. It's a threshold, a thin place. It used to be sealed, but when I died, the seal broke. That's why you heard me, why I could warn you. My throat tightened. Why would you warn me? You don't even know me. Another pause. Then the voice cracked softly, like he was crying without breath, because I remember what it did to me. I pressed a hand to my mouth. The voice faded. Static replaced it. When I checked the room again in the morning, the radio was gone. The chair was gone. The room was empty, dead empty, like nothing had ever been inside. I sealed the door myself that same day. Screws, nails, paint, furniture pushed against it. I did everything I could, but tonight, as I write this, at exactly 1:11 a.m., something tapped the door, 3 slow knocks, and then a voice whispered from the other side, not the dead man. Not the realtor, the hollow one, the teeth voice. You know I saw you. You know I touched your door, and you know doors don't stay closed forever. I froze, because after it said that, someone else whispered behind it. Soft, familiar, the dead realtor's voice. Don't open it. Don't ever open it, even if it asks nicely. The knocks stopped. The house is quiet again, but I know the truth now. Some doors aren't meant to be opened, and some doors don't stay closed. This is my last night in Texas. Or maybe it's the house's last night with me. Either way, something is coming through that door, and I won't be here when it does. The end.